Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Barbara. This is Barbara Talks Some More. Okay, this is my second channel. My original channel is called Barbara Talks, so be sure to subscribe to both channels. Okay, over here I go over public figure natal chart readings and also synastry readings as well. For now, okay, that's what's going on for now. Over here it's a little bit more casual in terms of this channel over here. Over there on my original channel I go over anything to do with the astrology world, metaphysical world. I have playlists, so if there's something you guys are interested in learning about, okay, you guys can find it probably under the playlist, okay, and then you guys can look for your particular aspect or energy or whatever it is that you guys are interested in learning about. If you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progressed natal chart reading, mini natal chart reading, mini synastry reading, the information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. You guys go on my website, you guys select the readings tab, okay, an email window should pop up, okay. You guys send me an email and we will go from there, okay. Usually my readings are kind of like the readings over here, okay, is really what it is. It is a video, but it's pretty much me talking the entire time. These readings here are usually more synonymous to my mini natal chart and mini synastry readings, okay. In my full-blown, in-depth natal chart, progressed natal chart reading and synastry reading, I talk for the entire time just about that and I go over absolutely everything. In these videos, which are more closely connected to my mini natal chart and mini synastry reading, it's kind of whatever jumps out at me, okay, when I first pull up the charts, okay. With that being said, today we are going to be going over Michael Jackson and Diana Ross, their synastry, okay. Really interesting, okay, energy between the two of these individuals. Now, with that being said, if I pick up on something that's taking place in their synastry, it doesn't mean that it's always going to play out the same way in your own natal charts, right? It always depends on the rest of the aspects, the energies in the natal charts, okay. And honestly, I'm usually psychically hooking into the energies between the two individuals. Now, with that being said, I'm not channeling anybody from beyond. These aren't messages from beyond. I'm just looking at the energy around the situation, okay, and then that's kind of how I am interpreting the energies between the two individuals. Now, with that being said, also another one of my disclaimers always is, I am not a psychologist and everything that comes through in these videos is alleged and for educational purposes only, okay. So let's go ahead and jump into the synastry between these two, Michael Jackson and Diana Ross. Really interesting energy here, okay? Because personally, I did not know anything about Diana Ross until now when I watched the movie, okay? I love Michael Jackson, I love his music, and I knew surface level things about him, okay? I never went on a whole research expedition to learn about him, even back in the day too. But it's interesting that even back then, nobody really mentioned Diana Ross, and now it's been coming out everywhere. So it's so interesting how certain things get energetically cloaked or hidden for a period of time until I guess the energy is meant to be looked at, I guess. So between these two there's always these allegations because Diana was much older than him. She met him when he was a kid. There's a lot of stories here, okay. Did she groom him? Did she not groom him? Obviously I can't make any assumptions over here, right? I don't know these two individuals. They did have a very interesting relationship and an interesting dynamic, okay, especially because she was a lot older than him. I do think that maybe certain boundaries were crossed, okay, or just blurred or misinterpreted. I do think there is a lot of that. And of course, because I've seen a lot of these videos of people talking about the relationship between the two of them, right, there's a lot of rumors that are floating around in the ethers as to what took place. Some stories about when he stayed at her house, right, what potentially could have gone down there, and then other stories here too of when they grew up, right, or when he grew up rather, okay, and he was an adult, that he proposed to her many times, that she did say yes for a period of time, but then that she was worried about the public opinion, so she didn't actually want to marry him. And of course, there's the other stories too, that she led him on and so on and so forth. So it's a really strange beginning, okay, to their dynamic. I do think that because of the beginning of their dynamic, okay, because she was much older than him and he was still a kid, I do think that that's the main reason why she never actually openly, I guess accepted him, if that makes sense, as a partner or as a spouse. I think that that's the main reason, right? Because again, look at how people are talking about it now. Did she groom him? Did she not groom him? I mean, only them two are going to know the truth, right? And there's a whole story here that she didn't want to be portrayed in the movie, even though she played a huge role in the beginning of his career, right? Some people even say that she was the person who energetically put him out there, right? Or put him on the map, I guess is the term here, right? So I do think him being a kid, being a child, I do think that he developed this childlike crush or love toward her. I do think with him too, this more so energetically as I hook into the energies, I do think already with him, boundaries were blurred, trigger warning. I always picked up on potentially some form of sexual abuse that could have taken place with him in his life and in his upbringing, okay? So it's all these things. And then also we even saw in the movie, right, or those of you who watched the movie, it's he was never really around children, he was always around adults, right? He didn't really have fully a childhood and all these things. So it's in his life and in his upbringing, already the lines were like blurred. And then like there's like the quote apparently that he sent himself where like he looked at Diana as like a lover, a friend, and a mother. Who says that? Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, I feel like in his life and in his upbringing, allegedly, of course, right? These are just my own opinions of hooking into the energy. A lot of these blurred boundaries between family, I do think that there were like, again, allegedly my own opinion, incestual things that took place, right? Potential sexual abuse within the home, where like the boundaries were like blurred and like mixed, okay, is really what it is. And that's the main energy that I get between the two of these individuals. And of course, right, the industry being the way that it is, it always preys on children, right, is really what it is. So again, you know, I can't say whether she was the predator or not, but like the situation is questionable, right? She was much older than him. And then like, you know, there's like a clip, right, where, you know, she said that she didn't know that he would like grow up to be like this sexy or whatever. Honestly, you guys do your own research between the two of them, because there's like a lot of like, again, speculations and clips and so on and so forth, which honestly was like inappropriate, right? Like you could tell that he like just like had this like childlike, like shy, you know, awkward like love toward her, and then like she almost fed into it in a way. It's just like strange, but like at the same time, it's like I do think that there's a lot going on here with like power imbalances, power dynamics, right? With her especially, because look at this, okay? Diana Ross, I have her chart here. She's got a Scorpio rising. She's born on the 26th, okay, which is 8, which is closely connected to like Scorpio Taurus energy when I hook into it, right? In the numerological world, they might tell you something different. But to me, you know, that 8-day number is like even more of like the Scorpio amplifying energy, right? Because it deals with money, you know, mastering money. It deals with like karma too. It deals with like not cutting corners when it comes to money. She's got Mars in the A house, okay? So she maybe potentially could have dealt with some form of sexual abuse on her own, but I do feel like energetically when I hook into her, like there's this energy of just like, you know, like using her sexuality to like kind of like have power over people, but it could come from this wound of like sexual abuse. So there is a restriction connected to her own sexuality here, okay, energetically. And a lot of the time, trigger warning, right? But a lot of the time when people go through these things, I feel like either when they try to reclaim their power or they feel unsafe in certain areas, they try to use their sexuality as like a power move, right? To like kind of have power over people is really what it is. So I think that this was like already innate in her energy. I think that already like this is the direction she was going in energetically in this lifetime. I hope that that makes sense, okay? Because like she energetically gives me like Leo vibes. It's really, really interesting actually. I'm looking at her chart. She's only got Jupiter in Leo here, but she's got her North Node in Leo. Of course, she is Pluto in Leo generation. The Pluto is trining her sun, squaring her moon. Okay, there's a lot of Pluto aspects taking place in her chart. I see it in her eyes. She's got this like, again, you know, scorpionic vibe, but it's like at the same time, I feel a lot of Leo energy from her as well. Is really, really interesting. The Pluto does conjunct her North Node as well, which again is almost like trying to transmute this like sexual energy, right, in terms of like a creative way. But the reason why I'm saying I get Leo energy from her is like she just gives me this energy of just like being the dominant one, okay, in relationships and dynamics, okay, because you know in the animal kingdom when it comes to like the lion and the lioness, like the lion is just everything and the lion is just like kind of there, you know what I mean? So she just gives me that energy. Let me give you guys the birth information just so you have it, okay? So Michael Jackson's date of birth August 29th 1958, born at 7:33 p.m. in Gary, Indiana. Diana Ross 26th of March 1944, okay, born at 11:46 p.m. okay, so huge age difference here. And you know it's interesting, the first order of business when I pulled up the charts, I'm looking at the houses here, okay, you know on his side there's a lot of like, okay, look, his like sun goes into her 10th, his Pluto goes into her 10th. She did help with his career, right, there's that. But on her side, what I found more interesting was, you know, her sun, her Mercury, and her Venus, okay, go into his first house. Of course, you know, we're going this based off the fact if this information is even correct, okay? So again, this is like, I guess you can look at it as like a case study, like if this information is even accurate. So all of this energy of hers going into his first house is really interesting because it's like, you know, there's this energy of, I feel on her side more so that like she felt more seen. Like there could be this energy of just like her ego being fueled, like that's really what I'm getting here more so, okay, is really what it is. Like there's this energy of just like her feeling satisfied, like that's the energy that I hook into. I'm not sure if this deals with like her feeling satisfied that like she put him into the spotlight or being energetically attached to him, but like there's this like ego flex, okay, going on her side. So that's the first thing that I hooked into. The next thing here, what I found interesting is Michael was born on a full moon, she was born on a new moon. I found that really interesting, just like a random side note observation. Now looking at their placements here, okay, in terms of the aspects, a few things here where I was like, okay, you know, this makes sense. Ascendant, trine, ascendant, he's a Pisces. Again, if he is a Pisces, I have my speculations about that. You guys will see that in my Michael Jackson video, but let's say he is, okay? Ascendant, trine, ascendant, right? You know, They do get along, okay, in terms of their expression of the self that's there. Moon sextile moon. So there's a lot going on with the moon on both sides here, okay? So there actually could have been some form of emotional connection that was formed. I do pick up on that, okay? Even Venus on her side, a lot of Venus, you know, aspects from his placements to her Venus, right? Look at this. Her Venus, okay, conjuncts his ascendant. Technically speaking, if we just look at this aspect, he would actually be her physical type, right? Confirmation from my computer. I'm not sure if you guys heard that ring. Look at some more of these energies. His moon conjuncts her Venus, another nice energy when it comes to relationships. Moon conjunct Venus, another feeling of soulmate vibes, soulmate energy. His Venus squares her moon. It is a square, so there will be some friction to work out here, but still her moon is being impacted, okay? More emotions. His Mars opposes her ascendant. This could definitely be sexual attraction here, absolutely, okay? His Venus squares her ascendant, so in one way, shape, or form, he will still be attracted to her physically, right? And it's interesting, a lot of the time, this might not mean that it's going to be something that happens right away, right? With Venus square ascendant. And it's interesting because probably when he was a kid, he wasn't looking at her in that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was like that childlike innocence in a way. But as time has gone on, absolutely this aspect can, you know, turn into physical attraction as well. Look at this one, you guys. Mars conjunct the moon. This is an energy that produces children. And it's interesting because especially on his side, Mars conjuncting her moon, okay? It is at 8 degrees. I look up to 10 degrees of an orb. A lot of the time when I see this in Synastry, right, especially if the man is the Mars, the woman is the moon, and let's say it is a heterosexual dynamic, right, between the two individuals, it's like a flow, right, energetically, where the man feels like he can be the man in the dynamic and the woman feels like she's in like that feminine receiving energy, okay? This energy can absolutely produce a lot of children as well, okay? The Mars person always wants to have the moon person around, okay? So that's why sometimes this does turn into, you know, a children type of dynamic, but this is very sexual energetically, right? Like a lot of attractive energy, okay? Because again, the Mars person, right, their desire is being fueled by the moon person's internal and emotional world, okay? So you'll see this a lot of the time too in, you know, romantic dynamics, these sort of things. And once again, her moon is being affected, okay? So she was in one way, shape, or form emotionally involved. Like that is showing up here. Look at this. This is interesting. His moon trines her ascendant, her moon sextiles his ascendant. This is obsession, okay? You always want to know what the other person is doing. The ascendant person is usually the moon person, okay? But it's happening on both sides. It's a little bit more subtle because it's a trine and it's a sextile, but it's still there, okay? So this energy is coming up again. Okay, so it's interesting. It's really, really interesting here because it does seem like when I would watch like the videos of them and like how they went and tried, I do feel like he was like madly in love with her for like his entire lifetime. And she was the one that was like resisting it, but like out of protection for her career. And she would always reinforce that like they're really good friends. So like that's kind of like what she would try to reinforce. Definitely a lot of like concern about public opinion, which we still see to this day because she didn't want to be portrayed in the movie, right? Her Mars trines his ascendant, another sexual type of energy, okay? More moon aspects. Her moon trines his sun. Here is where it gets interesting. And this is when I was like, okay, I see what's going on here, okay? It is a little further out, you know, 10 degrees, about 10 degrees of an orb. His Pluto trines her moon, okay? His Venus conjuncts her Pluto. Her Venus opposes his Pluto, okay? And also they have Pluto on his side. So his Pluto sextiles her Mars. This is all of this like Plutonian dynamic, okay, obsession with the moon Pluto, okay, that's there. But it's interesting, it's happening on both sides, okay? I think that she hid it more, or at least she hid it from the public more. He was more open about it. Now what I will say is because they have Mars Pluto, okay, taking place here, even though it is a sextile, okay, even though it is a sextile, you know, this could have been, you know, the power moves on her side. But it's interesting when I hook into this, like, interestingly enough, like I don't feel any inappropriate energy for when Michael was a child, but this is just me hooking into this psychically, right? And allegedly, like I don't feel like anything inappropriate took place when he was a kid, but I think the issue for Diana on her side was exactly this conversation that would be sparked, which it is now, right? People talking about her grooming him and all these things, because that's actually what it looks like, okay? That's actually literally what it looks like when you look from the outside in. When I hook into it, like I don't see any inappropriateness, okay, from her side to his side when he was a kid. Now, when he was of age and older and she made those like comments, right, calling him sexy and all those things, like yes, in a way that was inappropriate, okay, at that time because of the nature of their dynamic. But when I hook into it, like I don't see anything happening when he was younger, okay? But again, you know, there's a lot of blurring lines here, a lot of blurred energies. We got Saturn involved, okay, his moon squares her Saturn, okay, ascendant square Saturn, all these things, okay, taking place, which prolongs the dynamic. That's why they knew each other for each other's entire lives. A lot of this Uranus energy taking place too on both sides, okay, so his sun squares her Uranus, his Uranus trines her sun. Like, there's a lot of acceptance here, okay, but again, you know, this is something that's different, right? Moon square Uranus happening on both sides. This is a very interesting karmic dynamic, and here it is, okay, Neptune trine Venus. His Neptune trines her Venus. Here's that energy of feeling like this is your soulmate, okay? This is something outside of this realm, okay? Again, Neptune. There's a lot of Neptune in here, actually. And that was the other thing when I saw that. I was like, okay, this makes sense. Those are the blurry boundaries. They both have Mars trine Neptune on each other's side, okay? It's happening on both sides. Mars trine Neptune, okay? That's blurry sexual boundaries, which I do feel like this whole relationship was. Actually, when I hook into it, and I might title the video this, okay? It's very much blurred boundaries, okay? You know, from the beginning. And some of these things are connected to Michael's upbringing and the things that he was around, okay? And, you know, again, his own things that could have taken place, again, allegedly. We don't have confirmation of exactly everything that took place, but also from things that we do know, right? Again, him not being around kids, him always being around adults, and just like, again, all this Neptune creates this like energy where the relationship isn't defined. Like, you feel something, but the relationship isn't defined. Sometimes people might think that, you know, this might have to go toward a romantic relationship, right? But it doesn't always have to be that, right? Again, you know, it could just be two people who are like really good friends, for example, right? And they have this unconditional love for each other, which ended up being this dynamic in the end, at least the way that they tried to explain it, okay? I do think that Michael wanted to take it to the next level, absolutely, okay? But there was definitely love here between these two individuals, okay? I just think that the boundaries were blurred is really what it is. And, you know, just my conclusion from looking at these charts, I don't think that anything inappropriate took place when he was young and when he was a kid. Okay, I do think that he had like a prolonged crush. I do think that she did take advantage, maybe as he started getting older, started making those commentaries, right? You know, all these things. Absolutely. At that point in time, there was kind of a little bit of a power trip going on her side. I do feel that, right? But I do feel like the underlying issue here between these two individuals was mainly on her side, worrying about public opinion of what people would say, okay, if they actually got together. And it would have been exactly this, what people are speculating and saying now. Did she groom him? Did she not groom him? Like, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say because all these things are just speculations, right? Based off of what the public sees is really, really what it is. But it's interesting overall. I mean, the dynamic ended the way that it did, right? Where, you know, they were just like really good friends for a long period of time. And that's kind of what I'm getting here, okay? In terms of just looking into these two individuals and their natal charts. So I'm going to wrap up this reading here. I hope you guys enjoyed my reading on the synastry between Michael Jackson and Diana Ross. You guys can always let me know who you guys would like me to read next. Feel free to comment below. And then if you guys would like your own reading, so natal chart, synastry, progress natal chart, mini natal chart, mini synastry, send me an email for that. And then make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day or evening wherever you are. Bye.